Right, hello everyone. Let's see what we're doing here today. Looks like we're doing build a reusable footer, and this is with the FreeCodeCamp modules where we're going through them. And if this is your first time watching a video on our channel, my name is Rob. I'm a coding instructor for PreCodeCamp, and we are going through some of the modules that FreeCodeCamp offers, and we're coming at it from an instructor's point of view. So you're going to learn something by following along and coding along with us. And all that we ask you for is a like on the video, and put it in the comments down there what you're currently learning or what do you find difficult about this, because we can make follow along videos that can really help you out and learn this material. So let's go ahead and dive into the lesson here, and we'll see how we can create this reusable footer. All right, so this is what we're going to be building here. It says, here's the example, and it looks like we have a real simple footer. Maybe some things broken down through grid, and I got some little icons. Looks like we have a hover effect here, different text color here. So real standard simple footer, and we're going to be doing the exact same thing. Everything's going to be chaptered out down below with the topic of what we're going to be talking about. I don't know if in this case here that it would be wise to simply break it down by user story, but we're just going to kind of go through this all together. We are going to read the user stories, making sure that we have what the bare bones needs, but we're also going to duplicate the project that they have created. And it says, try not to copy the example project, give it your own personal style. And I feel like when we're learning things, let's just go ahead and try to copy it. And then if you want later on, you're totally able to repurpose it, but you can kind of see about the thought process. That kind of goes about, hey, you have this design from your UX UI design department, and you're trying to make it happen on your own, just based off of their example that they give. So that's what we're going to go through with this in this video. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with reading over some of these user stories that we have to do. And we'll keep that in the back of our minds by adding it to our component, and then also making sure that we can style the stuff too by adding classes. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Okay, so let's go ahead and read through some of these user stories that we have here. It says the very first one, it says that we want to export the footer component, and it looks like it's already being exported right here. So that's a real quick test that is already done for us. And this is going to be your standard cookie cutter boilerplate. Lookout is you want to export, you want a const here, and then the name of the function. And then this is just an anonymous arrow function. The next part here, it says your component should return a footer element that contains all of the other elements. And so what it's looking for is a return statement. So let's go ahead and do that. And as far as the single JSX element that we want to export here, it is going to be footer. Now, one of the things that I would say, make sure that you do here is put some parentheses on here, especially if you know that it's going to be multiple lines, which this one is. And that way, anything inside of the parentheses will be returnable, and you'll be able to start seeing some stuff display over here on the far right. Now, I know we're getting this error down here, but that's just until we go ahead and put in our element that we want to do, because it needs to return a single JSX element. And so we're going to do footer. And again, I totally recommend opening and closing things in here, so that way you know that they are one complete element here. And so this footer right here, notice that our error is gone down here. And so this right here should satisfy this user story number 2 that we're seeing here, because it should return a footer element. And now we need to put every single thing that we want to put for this footer. We need to wrap it inside of here, because if you remember, when we are talking about React, it needs to export a single JSX element. And this single JSX element is right here, footer to the closing footer. And anything we put inside here is going to be legal HTML. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on here to some of the restrictions here that we have. So it says number 3, your footer element should have at least 3 unordered list items. And each one of those list items needs to have 2 list items inside there. So what we're going to do here, and I'm just going to go ahead and create like another div here. And this is just going to be for styling purposes when we get to it. But I'm not going to give it a class name quite yet, but just know that, hey, this is going to be for styling purposes. Next, we're going to do those ULs, the unordered lists. So again, I'm just following the opening and closing aspects of this. And it says that we need to have 3 of these, right? And so where it's getting that from, again, is this is an unordered list right here. This is another unordered list with 2 items. And then this one over here is another unordered list. And so that's kind of what we're going at when we're looking at what are we actually building here. So the very first one that they had was fitness dashboard and services. We'll keep that in the back of our minds here as we're building this out. So I'm going to go ahead and do another one here and close it off. So you can kind of see how this is looking very much like HTML. We are keeping the structure of that we learned in HTML with having tabs being our identifying for hierarchy of what is inside what. So usually when you're utilizing an editor like Visual Studio Code and incorporating Prettier, it will definitely do all this stuff here for you, but we just have to be careful in the way that we type. So let's go ahead and finish this off. And let me make sure that it closes that off. All right, perfect. So now we have it, and then it wants us to have the 2 list items in each of them. And let's go ahead and add that. And again, I'm just opening and closing the tags here, and we can fill it in with text here later, as well as what will we like to put in here for the href. I think that we can just do an href here of hashtag. And one thing I do want to do on here before I do this is I want to wrap this in an li, because anytime you're dealing with unordered lists, you want to make sure that you have a list item in there. And then you can go ahead and put in the anchor tag, and then we can go ahead and type in the text. And like I said, I think the first one on here was fitness dashboard, and then we can start seeing that appear right up there. Okay, so now I can copy this and I can apply it right underneath it. So this is how we're building the scaffolding out here. And this fitness dashboard, this can be, I think it was services. And then now I can go ahead and grab these 2 and apply it to my next unordered list. Okay, so that's all I'm doing here. And instead of fitness dashboard, I think it was maybe watch videos. Let's go ahead and put that on there. Now it's not looking anything like a footer quite yet, and that's because we haven't styled it. And so after watching the videos, then it's going to be Discord. And then down here, let me go ahead and do that here. And this first one here is going to be privacy policy. And then we want to have the terms and conditions. Okay, so you can see that we have all of our unordered lists. We have them kind of grouped up. They're in 3 separate ones. And without any styling, so far this satisfies user stories 1 through 3, minus the part here. It looks like we need to do underneath this, we need to have a paragraph tag. So we'll do a paragraph. And then inside the paragraph, we want to put that copyright symbol. And let's go ahead and copy it and put it in there. And then I'm just going to go 2025. That's the current year that I'm at. And then to fitness dashboard. And then the all rights reserved. Okay, so we're getting the structure. And then the last part here, it says it needs to have those footer icons. And again, I'm going to go to the project for this, and I'm just going to copy them, and then I can paste them and work with them down here. But I kind of want to group them together in their own div, and making sure that I'm closing this off. And that's just so later on, I'm able to kind of spread them out and put them in the bottom and center them and everything. Next, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to kind of paste what's on my clipboard. And then I'm going to go ahead and make each one of these anchor tags with the href hashtag. And the link is going to be, or these icons are going to be the text that we're going to put in between the anchor tags. You'll see this all cleaned up here. So the very first one, once you see this pattern here, you'll recognize it. So we're going to do the anchor tag, open, close, and the href that goes in here is going to be the hashtag. And then what text goes in between there, that's where we're just going to put that icon on there. Okay. So now I can remove it, and I'm just going to do the exact same thing to each one of these. Like I said, it's going to be super simple on each one. And then we're just going to grab each one of these little icons that they have given us. And that should help us with getting it to display properly. All right, so just doing a real quick cleanup here, get rid of these extra icons that I don't need. And like I said, I feel like this right here, if we were to hit the run test, that it should be good. But we want to make sure that this is styled, and let's go ahead and style it. And then we can go ahead and hit the test button. Okay, so I have the index.jsx shoved all the way to the left because we're going to have to be adding some classes to this. And then we're going to be adding some styling on the far right. Okay, so the very first thing that I would like to do here is for the styles.css, I want to make sure that background color is gray. Okay, and we can either attack this or address this at the footer if the footer happened to be a different color, or we can do this on the body. And so we can go something like this. We can say, hey, for the body, let's go ahead and make that background color. And let's set that to what they used. I went ahead and used the color picker to see what they used. And it was E, so Echo 3, and then Echo 1, and then Echo B, or Echo Bravo. And so that will go ahead and give us that gray color. Let's make sure that we put the semicolon in there. And that should give us that nice gray background. Now, as far as the footer goes, on theirs, they had things that were centered. And so we're just going to try to make things look a little pretty here. And so we're going to attach here to the footer. And we want the footer section here, we want that to have a background, or we want the padding rather to be maybe 20 pixels. We want to make sure that the items are all centered. So we'll do text align center. And then we want to have the font family. We want to set that to maybe an Arial and back up with a sans serif. All right, perfect. So that looks good for the footer part. And let's go ahead and add a new class on here. We're going to call this one footer section. And so we're going to come over here, and on this div right here on my line 3, we want the class to be set to footer section. Now, one of the things that you want to make sure that we do here, and we have to remember this whenever we're dealing with React and JSX, remember this is like a JavaScript file, and the keyword class is already taken. It's a protected word, right? And so we can't use that. And so what React has came up with is we have to do class name with it being camel cased, and we can come in here and go ahead and type in, well, what do we want this class name to be? We want it to be footer section. Okay, so now we can come over here and attack the footer section. And so what do we want to put here in the footer section? Well, we want to split up those list items into 3 separate boxes. And a real quick way to do that is, hey, let's make this a grid. So we want the display to be grid. Okay, now just because we made it grid, we're not going to see anything until we give it a template to kind of go off of. And so we can do a grid template columns, and we can set the repeat on this. Remember, this is just a CSS function. We want 3 of them, and we want them to take up 1 fractal each. And so now you can see how they went from all being stacked on top of each other to now they are separated into their respective columns. Okay. Next on here, let's go ahead and sweeten the deal with this. Don't forget the semicolon. And we want to go ahead and put a gap in here. We'll set that to 20 pixels. Let's go ahead and do a justify content. Let's set that to center. And then let's go ahead and also align items, and let's set that to center as well. Okay. So that way they're all centered. It's going to be inside that grid box, nice and centered. So that looks perfect. We may have to come back to the footer section to add some margins or something, but we'll do that once we take a look visually on what it's all doing here for us. So the next thing that we want to take care of is these bullet points that are on there. we want to remove them. And so a way to go about that is we can target them using using nested styling here. And so let's go ahead and show you what that kind of looks like here. So we can say, hey, if we come in here, let's go ahead and attack the footer div. And we're saying, hey, if there's any unordered lists in there, then let's go ahead and remove those bullets. And we want to do that with list style. We want to set that to none. So now you can see that they have disappeared. They're no longer there. And this is only going to happen on the footer. It's not going to happen on the entire page. We're saying, hey, specifically look at the footer, go inside the unordered list, and set that list style to none. Let's also remove the padding and margins on this one. So we'll do padding, we'll set that to 0, and then we'll do a margin, and we're going to set that to 0 all around. Okay, you can kind of see how it shifted it all up, because unordered lists, they come with their own standard paddings and margins and everything. So we just went ahead and removed that. Okay, so next is the list items themselves. Let's go ahead and attack them. I'm gonna go ahead and scroll up. And with the list items, let's go ahead and set the margin bottom on them, because we want a little more spacing in between them. And so we can say, hey, anything in the footer that happens to be an L, let's go ahead and adjust the margin bottom. And let's set that to 10 pixels. You should see that it's just going to kind of shift those items down just a little. Okay. Next is, let's remove the underlining of the text. And then let's also change the text color of these links. Okay. So let's visit that one next. And so that's going to be, if we're in the footer section, any anchor tags, let's go ahead and make the text decoration, and let's set that to none. So that should remove the underlining. And then let's go ahead and adjust the color. So we're going to go ahead and set the color here, and we want to set that to the hashtag 1 foxtrot 29 and then 37. If you're wondering how I got to those colors, there's a Chrome extension that you can use for color picking, and it just plucks out the color that you happen to hover your mouse over. So I went ahead and wrote some of these down. All right, perfect. So now it's starting to look good. You know, I kind of lost the hover over this, but let's go ahead and update it. So whenever we hover over them, we're going to change the color to something else. So we're going to do footer, any anchor tag, but we want to specify with that pseudo class of the hover. And now we can come in here and say, hey, I want that color of that text to change. And let's go ahead and change it to the hashtag of 6366 foxtrot1. And that will give us a nice little purple effect. And now we can hover over them and we can see that it is indeed working. So cool. Next, the footer paragraph. Like, these kind of look smushed up together. Let's see if there's something that we can do with these, and as well as creating a class for the little icons that they gave us. So when it comes to the paragraph, what I'm going to do for it is I do want to change the color to a softer gray, and then adjust some of the margins on the top to kind of push it down a certain amount. So let's go ahead and look at that. This is going to be the footer paragraph tag, and we want to set that to the color of 6 Bravo, but don't forget the hashtag 6 Bravo, and then 7280. Okay, and then don't forget the semicolon on there, so that way we can see that turn gray. Perfect. And then let's go ahead and adjust the margin on here. So we'll do let's go ahead and do a margin top of 20 pixels. Perfect. And then let's go ahead and address these footer icons. And the reason that I wrap these in a div is because, you know, it would be really nice to be able to turn this entire thing into a Flexbox here. And so let's go ahead and adjust that. I'm going to go ahead and move this. And I feel like the paragraph tag that I put on here, it needs to be on the outside of a div or a footer maybe. Let me look at this real quick. All right, I think I found the mistake, and I'm kind of glad that we're kind of going through with the CSS because those tests probably would have failed. So this div that we put here on my line 23, that was right at the end of all of these little icons, it really needs to be put right after that final unordered list. And I was looking at this with like, why is the copyright not going full length? And I was like, oh, it's wrapped in the grid. So anyways, this div needs to go here, and I do apologize about that. But now we're tweaking the things and making sure that everything looks good. And that looks a whole heck of a lot better. So now with these items, these icons that we have here, let's go ahead and make that into a flex box and give it a gap in between. And it should look really nice once we get done doing it. So we do need to change the class name or update the class name on this div. And so again, we're going to do class name. We're going to set that equal to, we're going to call this one footer icons. Okay. And so that way we can come here in our styles, and we're able to go ahead and say, hey, you know what? In the footer, there's going to be footer icons, right? Footer icons. And let's go ahead and add a few things to it. We need to make sure that the display is set to flex. And then we're also going to do justify content center. And then let's also put in here, give a margin top. So that's 20 pixels, and kind of give it a little more buffer there. As far as the icons itself, we can definitely do the following. So we can do footer icons and target them specifically. And we want to make sure that the font size here, we'll set that to 24 pixels, and you can kind of see them grow there. And something else that I would probably do on here is let's go ahead and do a gap, and we'll do a gap of, we'll say 10 pixels, and that will kind of help spread them out. Okay. And so I believe that is going to help us out there. All right. I think that is it as far as getting the footer section to look decent. I found my instructions here, and let's go ahead and test these results real quick and see if we got them right. Let's go and test them. There we go. We built it. Looks great. All right, so you made it this far. Great. Thank you so much for watching. We did learn a few things with this and how we can incorporate styling as well as, structuring things out, and the way that things are laid out, just like in HTML, works the same exact way in these JSX files. I haven't looked at any more of the FreeCodeCamp of when we're going to be introducing in JavaScript to this, but this is a strictly a really nice way of introducing the topic of React and kind of getting a feel for some of the nuances with it. But hopefully it should feel familiar, just like HTML does and CSS. And like I said, I can't wait till we get into the JavaScript portion of this, if there is any, later on for the React. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.